Raphael's the youngest player on the team. There you go. Always having good team chemistry with their support. Do they mean like interpersonal relationship, or do they mean like adding sodium to, you know, a glass of water?
Yeah, and I'm personally, to be quite honest, I would prefer both in this case. So that would be very good for that team chemistry, and always good to see support players
and the explosiveness of adding sodium to water.
Sure.
I'd like to see it. They're going to be coming out the gate on this triple tank along with the Junkrat. So Hong Kong Attitude, this is a great Sombra pickup here. I mean, you just kind of turn those tanks into big beefy health bars that become ult charge. That is if Persia doesn't already kill you.
And right now we're looking to see if maybe Arachne can keep his shield available right now, because there is a decent amount of damage coming through. As the camp does start to unlock, though, this is where the pressure comes on.
Yeah.
And the camp, I would say, expectedly does go to the tanky team.
Yeah, however, this is now a bit of an arms race between Persia either getting picks with the spam damage or getting a Riptire, and Mui getting the EMP. Mui is leaps and bounds ahead of Persia right now. That's got to be the swing point here for Hong Kong Attitude.
And that's the kind of thing that Talon have to be considerate of right now, because Persia's other potential hero is the Reaper instead of the Roadhog. Now, the Roadhog is much better against another tanky composition, but against what Hong Kong Attitude is running as the EMP comes in, they might not have a lot of options.
Yeah, on top of the tanks, and they immediately drop MCD, makes it very hard to keep all those tanks topped off. Persia's technically still in this, but no, now finally getting picked out. They got a couple back in there between him and Slayvega, but really not enough to keep presence on the point. Hong Kong Attitude, they recognize their win condition there. They let Talon bank up the time that they were going to get anyway. When they hit hard.
And this is kind of where you kind of have to guess compositions, right? Because if you're Talon, you're expecting a tank counter, you want to be playing Persia onto the Junkrat. But if you're expecting these kind of heroes that Hong Kong Attitude have, you would prefer the Reaper, who does considerably better when there's a Sombra on the field.
Opting not to swap because they had the Coalescence, but he immediately gets popped by McCulty, who does go down in that same pulse bomb. And now that Riptire, the whole hog as well, they may be able to get an upper hand now that this Transcendence has run out. Doesn't quite demech Shaolin though, who's able to throw a self-destruct into the point, keeping Talon at bay. Hong Kong Attitude looking to regroup. Dive onto Persia is successful.
EMP available?
Yeah, no sound barrier from CQB, but yes, EMP available. Has to be the closing tool there. They pop Slayvega's mech, looking to drill down Raphael. Now it's just the pilot form Diva, and they are looking well clean on this defense here. The point did slip back the way of Talon, but Hong Kong Attitude looking like they'll secure it back.
And that's about the only silver lining Talon can hope for right now, which is still an important one. Note that they swapped it over while they were already on themselves 33%, so any extra percentage they get right now, very, very important for trying to stay ahead, at least in the objective game. But Hong Kong Attitude, their win conditions are so very clear. Get Mui online with the EMP, drop the EMP on all these tanks, charge everyone else's ultimates. Speaking of charging ultimates, Mui's had 2 EMP in 2 fights.
And Talon decided to not swap off the Junkrat after the initial fight because they were nearly at Riptire. They're relatively close to it again, but I'm almost expecting Mui should be able to catch up to that before too long, and even then the Riptire wasn't enough last fight. So as they come in again for another round, it's got to be something like this Earth Shatter, but Haru's already picked. That is a decent Earth Shatter though. Good save in from Mango Jai. Not quite enough to keep McCulty alive, but they've weathered the storm. They are now officially 1 for 1.
Oh, no tire.
Down, no tire. That is what Talon really needed here. They are going to be able to get on the point, but the moment that EMP comes up from Mui, Hong Kong Attitude should just be able to hit back.
Talon, though, they've been able to cap the point over every time they have attacked since the very first one. So at least Hong Kong Attitude, or at least for Talon, rather, they've been staying competitive on the objective score. And Hong Kong Attitude, they are the team that actually have to back up here despite getting the kill into Persia. Now Persia joining the ranks again, has the ability to Riptire, but not if he's hacked.
Yeah, that's straight in with the EMP in perfect timing, popping Arachne as well. Riptire will not be able to connect with anyone. That was the tool they were banking on, and it was such a narrow window for Hong Kong Attitude to get in before that Riptire, barely getting it down. The Coalescence not enough to keep Haru alive. Persia is doing his darndest though. Knocking the supports out of the fight is a big saving grace for Talon, especially with this whole hog out. McCulty's getting low. I think he's going to have to duck out before he gets anything with a pulse bomb. And without these healers, these tanks just get too low to stay in the fight. I think Talon may just be able to hold on to this one, despite things going so sour at the start. Popping those 2 supports has totally swung it in their favor, and now it's just closing out on these members that have no one left to heal them up. As soon as this Transcendence runs out from Mango, should be Hong Kong Attitude's last hurrah on the point.
And no one else is going to be really able to get back in on this point either. You did see Mui going down reasonably early in that final fight, not being able to get his final EMP, which may have been the tool to secure that point once again. But a couple of things there for Hong Kong Attitude. You do respect and you do credit the fact that they ran the Sombra, got quick EMPs to counter this tank composition. However, in that third fight, we did not see the EMP get good value. That was a big change up. That was a big factor in Hong Kong Attitude not being able to secure that fight. So the fact that they need the EMP to happen, it didn't happen the way for them. They lost the fight. On top of that, they let the point go through many times in Talon's hands. That gave Talon a little bit of a lead coming up to the final fight in terms of percentage, which helped them a lot. And a Ting, he likes ACG World more than the real world.
What's ACG? Is that like Second Life?
That's a high school in New Zealand.
It is. It is. Well, it's not a high school. It's a company that owns a number of schools. It's actually short for Academic Colleges Group.
Wow.
So there's colleges, plurals, is more than one.
Check out this group
Parnell
of Overwatch
College
players.
And Senior College. But I don't think that's what he's referring to. So, taking a look at the Persia, this is interesting out on this Widowmaker. We've seen successes out of Farah covering sidelines, but unfortunately Persia already picked out. Not going to have that same kind of pressure. Arachne as well down to Mui on the flank, who just starts opening up on the back line. A Ting, as low as he may have got, never quite went down. Shailin's mech was the only casualty. That's a point grab for Hong Kong Attitude.
We're also seeing now...
Oh man.
Before I even get there, the fight is not completely over just yet. There's a few members from Talon just kind of sticking around. The cap did go over to Hong Kong Attitude, but I wanted to talk about the Widowmaker just a little bit because teams are starting to run this Widowmaker in the same spot you would normally see a Soldier as an alternative to the Soldier, especially for the first fight. There are some pretty good angles that you can get an opening pick on, but if you lose your life early the way Persia did, well, it's time to change.
Man, getting Slay Vega's mech there and also Talon having to wait for Arachne's respawn. That was really rough. That could have been an overextend from Hong Kong Attitude. They balanced that very finely. Wow, headshot on Haru as well as Slay Vega has to go back to the spawn to reset the mech. This has slowed Talon a whole lot.
And this EMP setup is really good as well. You can sort of see the way they've got the health pack controlled right now. Mui's kind of checking around the corners, checking around the other side, scouting, positioning. Talon, they know they have to fight into an EMP, and this is tricky ground for them to cover.
Yeah, having to just kind of pile through this doorway. They did at least get MCD safe, so he's out with the Transcendence. Mango's matched with his own, and Talon is still surrounded on all sides. Raphael's already down. You already see McCulty ready to deal with these backliners, avoiding that flashbang masterfully as well. And Talon, they're finally kind of out of this space. They do get to res Raphael, but they're also very split up here. Arachne's going to die miles away from this team. They got one back on a Ting, but MCD's dead. Slay Vega's getting pressured, should get demech soon. They've got the second support. Talon, they're not even fighting close to the point.
This is all kind of coming down from Hong Kong Attitude's ability to control the spacing here. Now, Talon, what they did manage to get is get out the EMP from Mui and then push out somewhat. You're right, though, didn't quite make it into the point. Specifically, though, for Talon, they made sure Haru was safe, they made sure MCD was safe, and they used the double support ultimate just to break out of this room. The problem is, after breaking out of this room, they still couldn't win.
Yeah, they were still too separated, they were still surrounded, and Mui's nearly back on another EMP anyway. So all of those factors, unfortunately, not working out for Talon's sound barrier early. They pop Slay Vega, deconstruct the backline before the EMP even lands. It's really just icing on the cake at that point. And a style points Transcendence out of Mango Jai just to round it out when they pick off the last remaining members of Talon. That's going to be Hong Kong Attitude tying it up in spectacular fashion.
Much cleaner out of Hong Kong Attitude this time around. You can see the spawn control coming in, very important for this team. The EMPs are far more effective when you can sort of guarantee where all 6 members of the other team are going to be. In this case, in that small opening room outside of the spawn. If you can catch a lot of members in there with an EMP, you are all but guaranteed to win a fight. And also, with Hong Kong Attitude's specific composition, running that Sombra, running Mui specifically on the Sombra, who we know is a very good Sombra player, very easy for that team to also snowball win conditions like the EMP.
I mean, that was pretty masterful. That was everything they hadn't quite been able to do on the defense initially on Village. If Hong Kong Attitude can pull out a similar kind of performance on Shrine here, should be well set, but Persia is going to be responding with his own Sombra, and it's going to be Raphael over on this Junkrat. So I'm curious to see how this works for Talon.
It's kind of like a cover all bases composition for Talon here, but they're not very specialized in anything. They're kind of just general across the board. That may hurt them, but we'll see if it does.
It's a good flank onto Mango, so I mean, just with that alone, unless Hong Kong Attitude gets some crazy frag outs here, Talon should be able to secure this point out the gate.
Actually, you see Persia has massively led Mui so far in EMP charge. It's going to be very important going into these next couple of fights. Of course, the winning team, you do also expect to have more charge, but usually some players, even when they're losing, they can be very competitive on that charge. Hong Kong Attitude, though, got to be very considerate of their ult charge against Talon. Right now, have a pretty good defensive position.
I like the decisiveness. Hong Kong Attitude diving before EMP was quite ready to go. They did pop MCD, but it's been traded, so it hasn't quite been the resounding success they were after. Now Talon getting into some of those ultimates. Hong Kong Attitude need to tread carefully here. They just need to bide their time, in fact.
Oh, EMP already used by Mui. So the first one in the game, and that's
decisive.
Already just gone on to 2 players. Persia's going to die without even getting his own one.
Wow, that was incredible. I hadn't even noticed that had come up because Persia had been leading him by a good 20%. You see Persia died on about 95. That just goes to show that one dive for Hong Kong Attitude, even though they didn't get the point off it, it gave them the EMP charge, which then won them the fight. Again, decisiveness before Persia's EMP was ready.
But now that EMP does change hands, and like you said, Persia's EMP now finally being ready, it's time for Talon to really pull the trigger here as well. Also coming online is the Riptide, so a lot of resources, a lot of tools that Hong Kong Attitude got to be considerate of.
We're just looking,
especially Mango, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking to just try and get straight in here with this EMP. They are keeping decent tabs on Persia. Slay Vega, though, got caught in it and pulse bombed. That's a little rough. The hack out of Mui. That means Mango with this ultimate here. Oh, Raphael as well going down. Does not get a good trade with the Riptire. Just kind of bounces loosely off a ting. He does get closed down. Talon still want to commit to this, though. They know they've still got an EMP. They've also got this Earth Shadow, which does not get something done. No, I think that. I mean, Mui's dead. He's dead by Arachne's hand. So, at any rate, Talon are kind of getting the presence in the fight. Graviton off to the side to close out on CQB. That should be Talon biting back on the point, but Hong Kong Attitude really made that defense last. In fact, still not done.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because the primal range from a Ting is just going to rack up some extra percentage points on that scoreboard right now. In fact, even another hack. In fact, there was an EMP out of Mui. Hong Kong Attitude are desperately trying to keep him alive.
It's working, though, because the divers have respawned. They've got McCulty and Shylin back in, and they just absolutely rolled on through those members. Talon were holding on to ultimates there, holding on to an EMP, holding on to a sound barrier. Those were the first members that went down when Mui's EMP came in. They didn't respect the fact that the fight had gone off long enough for Hong Kong Attitude to have respawners coming in. So now, second time around, Talon have to come in with these ultimates up.
And that ends up being a huge play and a huge lot of stall for Hong Kong Attitude. Stall now being potentially converted into a match win for Talon Esports. They did not expect the EMP to come through, like you said. Specifically, Persia was caught in it. If Persia had survived, maybe the counter EMP would have worked.
There it is, EMP out of Persia, but he's already pressured out of the fight. Couldn't close out of Mui or any of the other surrounding members. So Hong Kong Attitude, having now kind of weathered that part of the storm, Riptire has to get a lot of work done. Catches CQB, that's something, but Persia's down. They've lost the DPS. MCD has to knock down a sick Graviton here to make this worthwhile. They should be able to get their presence on the point, though. They've got the members down. Hong Kong Attitude are low. Even committing the Graviton for good measure. They don't want to be in the same situation as last time where they held on to ultimates and ended up not winning the fight.
But now the problem is if they overcommit ultimates like the Graviton Surge, then how do they win the following fights? That's what's going to really set this pace for Talon Esports into really threatening their own 99% overtime. Hong Kong Attitude, on the other hand, they got ultimates coming up. They're going to be available soon, and they only need to win one fight. Talon got to be very considerate here.
And that's really the unfortunate situation for Talon. Do you hold on to them and take the risk, or do you commit them? The choice has been made. They have committed them, and that means Hong Kong Attitude get the advantage. Barman gets 2, and the EMP for good measure. They throw it all in. Even the Primal Rage out of a Ting. I don't even think Talon are going to get 1 kill in return, even with that Coalescence. That is just shy of a gong, but that is as decisive as they come. Hong Kong Attitude back in control of the point. Going to run the overtime out and close out Nepal 2-0.
At the end of the day, that one fight coming out from Hong Kong Attitude in the middle of that map on a Ting using a Primal, followed up by Mui's EMP, followed up by all the respawning players immediately jumping on the defenders from Talon's side, and specifically killing the defenders that actually had the ultimates. That's what really gave them the swing at the end of the day. That's what pushed them to the overtime to start with and really put Talon on the back foot. That one play was probably the play of Nepal.
I mean, when you consider as well that prior to that, in the what was essentially the opening fight, because the point had kind of gone the way of Talon without too much contest because of the particular team comp, the positioning. The fact that prior to that as well, Mui had a hugely impactful EMP thanks to a very finely timed and controlled dive from Hong Kong Attitude. I mean, that was twice in a row, essentially, Hong Kong Attitude basically won fights and in the long run won the game off the back of knowing where EMP was in the charge order, being able to play around, being able to set up for it, and in both situations catching Talon out with it.
And we also sort of said earlier on as well, right, the difference between the ultimate charge, the fact that if you are the winning team, well, you should have more charge than the losing team if they lost that fight. But then we also talked about sometimes you do get that one member on the team who's very good at getting the ultimate charge, very good at sneaking damage. And it wasn't Mui just yet because, as you sort of pointed out, Persia had a bit of a lead onto Mui, but just sneakily in there, he managed to get back ahead of Persia despite losing a fight, coming in with the first EMP, critically using that EMP so early. As soon as he got it, he pressed the trigger button.
Yeah.
And Talon were not set up. They were not available. They were not ready for it. And Persia, most notably, didn't have anything available to counter either.
I mean, as far as Talon were concerned, they just traded 1 for 1. You could tell they were feeling pretty confident that they were able to wait out for Hong Kong Attitude to go and re-ingress, by which time they would have their own EMP. They didn't count on Mui having his EMP up. They didn't count on Hong Kong Attitude using it. And all that, it just ended up kind of landsliding that fight away. And I mean, Persia died on, I think, 95%. There was one, I have to say, slightly concerning thing, though, that did actually come out of Talon just on the whole there, and that was the Junkrat. Both times it was pulled out, it was 2 completely different members, but both times as well, they were, to put it bluntly, quite slow in charging up the ultimate. Oftentimes we do see Junkrats get set up on the point and get quite a way towards the Riptire. Unfortunately, not the case there for Talon. At any rate, they get to move on to Numbani.
Let's take a look at the next map coming up, which will be Talon's selection onto Numbani. Now note that Talon, if they want to take the number 2 spot, they need at least a 3-1 score line to do so. So they've already lost the 1 map. They need to pick up the next 3. They can't get the 4-0 anymore, but finishing even 3-2 is not going to give them a good enough map score. So these next 3 maps, very critical for this team moving forward. Any mistakes that they have made, talked a little bit about the Junkrat, that needs to be fixed now.
Yeah, I believe a 3-2 maybe still leaves them in contention for 3rd place, if not 2nd, but I mean, we touched on that earlier, right? That's playing Mega instead of Blank. I mean, it's, you know, it's 6-1, half a dozen the other, right? You don't want to be below 2nd place in this group if you can so help it, and they now find themselves very much on the cusp of being in that situation here. Talon, a Hong Kong Attitude, on the other hand, that was exactly the kind of start they need. They're basically 1 map win away from all but securing 2nd place.
And for Hong Kong Attitude as well, they get to walk into Numbani playing very similar compositions and hero picks to what they're already used to coming from Nepal. Talon, on the other hand, we're going to need to see them move towards more of a dive style here, which is more favorable for Numbani. So far, they've been relying more so on the heavy shield tanks. And one thing specifically that was pretty standout is the fact that we saw MCD on the Zarya and Slay Vega on the support. So I wonder what talent they're going to bring out along for Numbani. Whether these picks are going to be real or not, I mean, still up in the air.
With MCD hovering over the Tracer, I believe it was, I mean, generally, it's Haru and MCD on the supports. And
yeah, there you go. They're playing.
It could be triple DPS, in all fairness.
That's true.
And actually, I think it might be triple DPS, unless MCD is going to change the last minute. Hard to say, hard to say.
Usually you would see the Mercy here for triple DPS, but Haru's going to have his work cut out for him. In fact, this is going to get spotted out super early.
Yeah, and that means they can be super ready for it. Persia's already dead as well. The dive is just phenomenal. Hong Kong Attitude, this setup totally paying off because of how many squishy members there are on Talon and how little healing there is. That is practically a team wipe.
And you got to be very considerate here as well of the risk that you undertake. I'm sure Talon fully well understand what that risk is. You're only running 1 healer, which means a lot of that burst damage coming out, you will not be able to counter. You do not have the healing to be able to counter all the damage. And for Hong Kong Attitude, they got the perfect setup. They were hiding behind walls that Talon did not see. And then suddenly, in fact, the team's still back here. Hong Kong Attitude might be able to do the same thing again, yeah.
I mean, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This isn't double support, though, from Talon. A bit more conventional, the 2-2-2. And a tick does drop. Unfortunately, it's not going to work twice. And I really respect Talon for making that change, going, look, triple DPS might be great, but they're ready for it, they're prepared for it. This is going much better for Talon.
And that's the thing, right? Hard to get tricked twice by the exact same strategy.
Yeah.
And for Hong Kong Attitude, now they have to be considerate of the risk that they're taking. First of all, by trying to run the same early aggressive dive as they did previously, that worked. But secondly, the fact that they're doing it in the first place, it's a less safe defense. If they fail it, this kind of thing happens with Talons on the point.
Yeah, but they did at least get the respawns in, plus a greatly placed EMP. Raphael is pulling out the Dragon Blade, but he's really not getting much for it. Meanwhile, his team's just kind of dropping down around him as the EMP just knocked them right out of the fight. I mean, that was the one saving grace of Hong Kong Attitude's setup. In losing the fight as far forward as they did, they had enough time to come back and hold the defense, but now they have to hold on the point itself, otherwise they're just going to lose it altogether. And
they really did need Mui's break out of jail free card there as well. Yeah. A lot of what we saw on Village, mind you, they needed the EMP a lot, so this time around they probably wouldn't have won that without the EMP. Raphael had to change heroes as well coming into this next fight, but Persia so close to his own EMP, and now multiple times we've seen Persia just miss out on EMP while Mui's had it. Not going to be the case now though. Talon, 2 ticks already in there, likely the capital.
Yeah, and all those ultimates coming up as well. There's the EMP out for them, looking to get right onto a Ting before he can Primal Rage. Shylin as well before he can use the self-destructors. That's pretty much all the key tools from Hong Kong Attitude taken out of the picture. Sound Barrier out from CQB, doesn't catch the DPSs, and that is a D-Mech Shylin. He's still trying to get back in that right now. Talon well ahead in this fight. Good pick off on the side though, but it's Talon in control of the fight. We'll be able to get that last third over.
So the one concerning thing for Talon is they did have to use 4 ultimates for that. We've already seen cases, especially on Nepal, especially on Shrine, where Talon kind of overcommitted here. They wanted to use a Graviton Surge on Shrine that they probably didn't need to. Here they've used 4 ultimates. Maybe they should have just used them a little bit slower. Try the EMP first. If that doesn't get you enough, then throw in a couple of support ultimates if you're really pressured. By using all 4 ultimates going into this next phase, you've kind of given the power baton over to the Hong Kong Attitude side, who themselves have 4 ultimates to use against you.
It's like Talon is still afraid after that one fight on Nepal where they committed and still lost the fight, but that's already the opening Hong Kong Attitude need just off there. Actually committing a fair bit now. 3 ultimates in on this, but it pays off. They're going to win the fight, and Talon are far enough away from ultimates that this is still fine for Hong Kong Attitude.
You're also in a position where Hong Kong Attitude can spawn camp now. This is going to be reasonably difficult for Talon to break through, especially since they don't have any ultimates, and especially not the support ultimates. You want to have Transcendence to really break out here. You want to have something that can brute force out of the spawn, but for Hong Kong Attitude, their positioning is so good here.
This is going to take off so much time. Catching Haru in the base as well while Arachne was dying on the front line. They shouldn't be able to get anything more than that, realistically. Talon should just be able to back up, but again, it's time off the clock, and Talon still can't really break out of this.
And even 1 kill would have been enough to make Talon back off, and even 1 kill would have forced that fight win and then take time off the clock. Note that the card itself is still roughly at the beginning of this phase, which means when Talon eventually break out, if they eventually break out, they still got to start pushing the cap pretty much from scratch.
Again, conservative with the Transcendence means it comes out after Persia's already dead. They have to res him back into the fight. Now Talon, though, they do have a big opportunity. Self-destruct out of Shylin. Gets Persia for a second time. Dude just can't catch a break. Raphael nearly going down as well. Not connecting with the Pulse Bomb, unfortunately. Coalescence from Mango Jai as well. Just keeping everyone topped off. Drilling down the members of Talon. It is Hong Kong Attitude having to regroup a little bit here, though. Talon really trying to put the foot on the gas, but Mui may have just drawn them into a trap with that EMP out as they're starting to knock these tanks down. Indeed, they have some cut progress for Talon, but they overextended and got punished.
Well, they did get well, you sort of said it right. The current distance here is actually really important. So because they got the current distance, a reasonable distance across, and not only that, but they pressured Hong Kong Attitude so much so that Mui had to use the EMP. Now they've sort of done 2 things here. First, the objective is important. The second, get rid of a big ultimate like the EMP. This is going to help Talon push out.
Oh man, they're
after this fight.
Yeah, that was like he saw it come up and said stuck. He's like, all right, I'm good. I can get out of here. I mean, catching the 2 supports is pretty phenomenal there. Once again, the spawn camp. And Talon were even ready for it. They're like, okay, we're probably spawn camped here. They're probably going to get spawn camped again because they've made compositional changes. They still don't have those support ultimates.
Well, the thing is, the advantage they had was that they got the EMP out of Mui. Unfortunately, though, Mui's going to get another EMP pretty soon, and that's going to mean Talon's going to be in a reasonable amount of trouble here.
Slightly better for Talon this time, but there's the EMP straight out. Persia was already dead, mind you, and the Sound Barrier from Hong Kong Attitude gave them far more health than what Talon could deal with. They just didn't have anything close to ultimates available. The only one they're coming up on now is going to be that Coalescence. Hong Kong Attitude, they're going to set up the same spawn camp again.
And this is becoming more and more difficult for Talon to break through because they don't have the same advantages. The card is now slowly back in its way back to the original position where under 1 minute, in fact under 30 seconds, Talon, they got to win this, and even if they do, there's another fight.
Raphael did slip through. He's going to be able to get onto the cart. McColdy didn't quite get in quick enough to chuck the oh, never mind. I was going to say to throw the pulse bomb into the spawn, but Shailin's caught 2 in the rotation, and Talon are just up a tree with that ladder here. Hong Kong Attitude well in control, well in command of this defense on Nabani. One of the grossest and most effective spawn camps I've seen all season long. And Hong Kong Attitude going to rightfully stop the cart at just 61 meters.
Talon, though, you got to say, they're also masters of their own demise, unfortunately here. Last member alive, MCD, trying to keep this game in control, in contention even. But Hong Kong Attitude, they built themselves up a sound barrier. They even have the EMP coming up from Mui as well.
I mean,
and Talon do this actually because they've started to get a few respawners in.
There's the thing, they are closer. They've got the closer respawn, but all the tools have just hit a wall. The self-destruct got nothing. The Death Blossom just there, also getting nothing. I mean, I've got to credit and commend how much they've continued fighting with those respawners as they've come in, being able to even charge up some ultimates, but Hong Kong Attitude's control over the fight was just too complete.
And to sort of finish off what I was trying to say there earlier, when we're talking about Talon being the masters of their own demise, let's take a look at the macro progression there from both teams, because I had previously criticized Talon for using 4 ultimates after capping A, in fact 2 cap A. That meant that Hong Kong Attitude had a huge ultimate advantage going into that initial B defense. Because the cart was only just sort of starting out, it was only on that first corner, Hong Kong Attitude, them winning that fight with 4 ultimates, which they were expected to win because they had such a huge advantage, that meant they were able to spawn camp Talon Esports. So not only were they able to do that and spawn camp Talon Esports, because Talon Esports had put themselves so far behind, they couldn't even break out of that spawn camp effectively because they needed to charge new ultimates. So masters of their own demise. The macro mistakes, unfortunately, if you overcommit too hard onto one fight, you're going to be putting yourself in a bad position for the following fights too.
And I mean, for Hong Kong Attitude to recognize that in the way that they did, we talk about, you know, wanting to show what form you're going to be in coming into playoffs. I mean, if this is what Hong Kong Attitude are going to be coming into playoffs with, then, you know, teams beware, right? This is definitely a semi-finals caliber team. Just on paper, if they're also playing like this, then this could be Hong Kong Attitude's time.
Well, I mean, Hong Kong Attitude have been, I think even at the start of the season, we sort of looked at this roster, we looked at this team and said, this seems like their season. This seems like Hong Kong Attitude's opportunity to be that top team. They are one of the favorites in this entire season, in this entire Pacific region, and definitely one of the favorites within their own group. I mean, coming second so far, they look to be pretty much able now. They just got to get the cart past that middle section of B, and they will have secured that second place spot. So for Hong Kong Attitude now, this is definitely them firing on all cylinders.
I mean, it's not exactly this way, but Talon effectively have to full hold on A here. Otherwise, you can pretty well expect that Hong Kong Attitude can get the card at least further than what Talon did. Unless Talon pull off an even more brutal spawn camp. But
that's the thing. They have to do something equivalent to the spawn camp control that Hong Kong Attitude had, because in failing that, it's going to be a full cap out.
Very convincing dive so far from Hong Kong Attitude, but maybe just a little bit too deep, unfortunately. Actually, Haru going to have to back out. They do get Mui, they're looking to get these tanks as well on the return. If they can top off Shailin in time, though, Hong Kong Attitude should be able to get at least this third, if not a second one. Oh, Slay Vega in a little bit earlier than Arachne, and he loses his mech for it. Now Arachne has to back out. This secures him the second, third, and puts them in a pretty nice spot to at least get that last one here, unless Talon really start getting kills through, which unfortunately they are not.
And with Slay Vega still trying to respawn, Arachne being the only tank alive, taking a lot of damage, he's forced down, and now it's going to be Hong Kong Attitude kind of pushing with his momentum, trying to chase down any surviving members. And Talon's going to be very important to save everyone here. Make sure everyone's alive for this next defense. It could be their last. You can sort of see the objective marker right there. Hong Kong Attitude do not have a lot of distance to push.
These are not comfortable spots to defend in either. That's a very aggressive move from Raphael, and I do like it, but he's just getting nothing, and a ting on the dive just slam dunks the backline. I mean, that wasn't even Talon doing anything wrong. They were getting proactive. Hong Kong Attitude were just a fraction of a second quicker. That was a slam dunk.
And the problem is they may have been getting proactive, but right then and there, Talon could not get enough members alive. Look at that cart move on through. Casual as it is, just kind of strolling right there to their destination. Sunday drive for Hong Kong Attitude. Talk about Talon putting up kind of a good defense here in some sort of way. I think it was mostly there, but right at the end, even the small differences in player respawn times, Hong Kong Attitude, they were straight on top of the defense as soon as they capped on A. Talon was still waiting for respawners. They lost that subsequent fight because they didn't have a full 6.
And that's it. That's Talon's hope of finishing second place just kind of gone now. I think technically they could still finish third, but that would require them to turn the series around from here and reverse sweep. And you've even got to say, look, after that so far, it's looking less and less likely. I mean, Nepal, I will concede, was actually quite close for all the compliments we were giving Hong Kong Attitude's play. It was a deserved win for Hong Kong Attitude, but Numbani, on the other hand, like I said, that was a Hong Kong Attitude slam dunk.
It was, and sort of the only part there for Hong Kong Attitude that you might have been able to criticize was running that same aggressive defense again, but even so, they were able to bounce back so quickly. They did lose one part